Okay, so we'll work on UFT today. Now, I don't know if you've installed UFT or not before, or QTP. Now, whenever you start QTP, first thing you will see is your add-in manager. And whenever you install UFT, it gives you the option to install other add-ins as well. You can choose to install whatever add-ins are there in your project, whatever they may already be installed, or UFT may already be installed in your project. Some of these are common ones like .NET, Java, and so on. There's a new mobile one. There's also SAP and some other stuff. Okay, so just choose what you need. You don't need whatever you don't need. You don't necessarily need to select when you're opening UFT. Just choose what you want. So at this point, I'm just going to leave it as it is. You can turn this off from the show and startup option. If not, you can leave it as it is so it shows up every single time so you can choose. And even UFT tells you here that for optimal performance and object identification reliability, select only the add-ins you need. Okay. So click on OK, and we'll wait for UFT to load. Now UFT is very similar to QTP if you've used or learned QTP before. Just slight variation in the way it looks and feels, and of course some new bells and whistles. So we'll just take a look at how UFT looks in a little bit as soon as it loads. So UFT is open. The first thing we see is our Solution Explorer on the left-hand side, and then you have your start page. If you freshly installed UFT, you can disable and turn this off if you don't need it. On the right, you see a properties box, okay, and at the bottom you see a data box, and then you have your status bar where you see the ready, okay. At the top you have your toolbar and your file menu. Pretty standard, just like most of other software, okay. Now first we'll look at the basic menus when we first open it. So on the start page you have your option of whether recent test components. You can either click on new or open, okay. You can also see what's new in UFT. Okay, you can click on tell me more and you can go see what's new in UFT. This is version 12.5. You also have some quick shortcuts to a GUI testing forum, to API testing forum, to business process testing forum, and so on. So you have some shortcut to the help and some other support and some other stuff to the knowledge base. Okay. Now, if your company has purchased the support and the licenses from HP, you will have access to some of these things, which you can go to HP website and access some of the documentation, especially when you're running into some problems or issues and you're not able to solve the issue. Sometimes the issue may have to do with your environment, or maybe may have to do with your the way you are trying to do things. Maybe some settings need to be changed or new things need to be installed or whatever. So whenever you run into those issues, if your company, wherever you're working for your client, they purchase this, more than likely they have support, and if they do have support, then you can go and access those documents. All right, so now let's look at the menus. You have a bunch of different menus, pretty much like any other standard application. You have your file menu where you have your standard options, okay, like new, open, close, save, etc. Okay, you have your view menu where you can turn on or off certain things which you want to see. For example, your Solution Explorer, your toolbox, your properties window, your data window, your output window, your errors window, your active screen window, and so on. Okay, so you have a bunch of these different options. Okay, then in the resources you have your object repository manager. We will talk about object repository in a little bit. Then you also have your ALM menu, which is the ALM connection. So if you remember, we had talked about this in the ALM class. If you have UFT installed on the system and if you have ALM, you can basically run UFT from ALM and pass all the data from UFT back to ALM if you establish this connection. Unfortunately, our trial has expired, so I cannot show you that connection on this same machine. If we have to do that, we'll have to do it in another setup some other time. But you can try and do it, and if you, this also works for the older version. So if you have QC and if you have QTP, the older version, you can link them in the same way. It's just you have to find where to link it in your old version. Okay, in this version, it is over here. All right. Now, other than that, you have certain tools like regular expression evaluator, extensibility accelerator, and so on. And then you have your window where you can see your windows, because let's say you are doing multiple test cases, so you may have different windows. Okay. And then of course you have your help menu. All right. Now that's about the menus. The toolbars are standard. Okay. They give you the same options what you're getting in the file menu, but only few of them, and they are just shortcuts basically to some of the options which you can access from the file menu. All right. Now you do have the option to use whichever way you want to do it. You want to go through the file or you want to go through the shortcuts. It's easy to use the shortcuts. Okay. Now in the new, you have a bunch of different types of options. You have new test, you have new business component, you have new solution, you have new function library, you have new application area. Okay. Now right now, if you see in your solution explorer, it's blank. Okay. There's nothing there. Okay. Now before I actually create a file, let me also show you there's also other options which you are already seeing here. You have your toolbox. Right now nothing is there. Okay. Also in your data screen here, in the bottom you have your data tab, you have your active screen, and you have your output. Right now everything is blank, and even your properties window is blank. Okay. All right. Now let's look at these things. Let me cancel this. So you have, when you click on this drop down, you have these different options. Okay. So you have the option to create a solution or whatever. So we'll start by the basic, most simple thing, the new test. Okay. So when you click on new test, you have 4 different options right now available to you. Okay, you may have more than these depending on your UFT setup, because if you have some other environments and some other things integrated, you may have some other stuff. Okay, now right now GUI test, API test, business process test, and business process flow. Okay, we are gonna look at GUI test. All right, so GUI test, you put the name, let's say any name, whatever, test one or whatever you want to call it. You can use a good name, let's say login, or search, whatever you are testing. It is always good idea to name it like that, so whenever you go back and check your folder, you can go and look at that. Okay, so, and you can also define wherever you want to save it, so you can create your folder. Okay, so I'm creating a folder, my documents. Okay, and then we're going to select that, and just say we're going to just do a simple search, test case 1. Okay, and then we're going to click on create. Now you can add it to a certain solution. Okay, by default it will create a search solution for you. You can add it to any other solution which is already existing also. Okay, you do have the option to create a separate directory for the solution. Okay, if not, this is fine. Okay, so you will click on create, and it takes a little bit of time. My system is an i3 with, I think, 8 GB RAM and too many applications, so it's a little bit slow at times. And I'm running Windows 8.1. If I probably formatted, it'll be a little bit faster, but then I'll have to remove all the applications like Visual Studio and whatever stuff I have on my machine. Of course, in a production environment, you will probably have machines with 16 gigabytes and probably an i5 or an i7 system. So we'll just wait for it to create the test case.
So okay, so they install everything like in a work. I mean, like how means they already install in a system.
In the production environment, as in when you go and work on the job?
Oh yeah, job.
Yes, 90% of the cases yes, 10% of the cases no.
Oh.
When I'm saying that, why am I saying that? Okay, when you go to the job site and you go work on the client side, what happens is majority of the times they already have a project where you're going in for testing. Now you may be going in the beginning of the project or the middle of the project or whatever. Majority of the times the job of installations and all these things is given to their tech staff, okay, their IT staff, okay, who will take care of all the different installations, okay.
Mhm.
But in some cases, they may ask you to do it, to install new tools and new software, or maybe to test some kind of software to see which is better, okay? Because a lot of times they may not have used them before, and they want you to evaluate the different options, okay? They may say, okay, check which is better tool for automation, They may say, okay, try UFT, see Selenium, see some other tools, and they'll say, tell me which is the best one, and you only install it. So sometimes they will ask you to do it, but that is, I would say, about 10% of the cases, maybe 20%. Most of the time, it is installed by the tech staff, okay? Or it may also, this responsibility may also go sometimes on the QA lead, okay? Sometimes,
Oh.
like I said. All right. Now, having said that, moving on. Now our first test case is open. Okay. Now, of course, you've seen that the start page has gone in the background. Okay, and some things now we are seeing which have changed. Earlier the data was blank. Now we see a blank data table, which looks more or less like an Excel sheet. Okay. Our active screen is still blank because there's nothing happening there. Our output is also still blank because right now we haven't done anything. Okay. On the properties, because now we have our first test case, and that is highlighted, your properties window is now, instead of being blank, showing you certain properties. Okay, it is showing the name of the test case, the author, which version it was created, which version it was modified in, what date and time it was created, okay, when it was modified, the location, and some description, and which add-ins were associated with the test case. Now remember, when we started UFT, there were certain add-ins we selected. Okay, all right, and the solution explorer now, instead of being blank, now you have your default, because we didn't put a name, it created a default solution called test case one search, and our test case one search was created underneath it. Inside that, if I click on the plus sign, which expands it, okay, then you see your action one, okay, and then you also see your local, okay. Now by default, every test case you create in UFT will come with at least one action, okay. It will automatically create one action, okay. Now over here in your middle, in the center, you also see your action one, okay. What has happened is your test case is created, okay, and action one is added, and it gives you a window to write your action one, okay, to basically write the code for your action one, okay. So you have that, and your toolbox right now is empty, okay. Now, so what do you do at this point? Okay, now, given that you have never done this before, okay, and actually before I continue about what do you do, let's now take a look at what has changed after we created the test case one. Okay, of course we looked at the properties window, the data window, and the solution explorer. Some things changed. If you noticed, even your file menu and your toolbars changed. Okay, now you have some extra stuff than what was there before. So you have some additional options available. Okay, so now if you see, the file menu earlier was a shorter menu, and now you have some other options showing up. Okay, the edit menu was not there. Now you have the edit menu. Okay, the view menu is more or less the same. Okay, then the search menu was not there. Now you have the search menu. Okay, then you also have your design menu, which was also not there before. Then you have your record menu, which was not there before. You have your run menu, which was not there before. Resources, you only had object repository manager. Now you have a bunch of other options. ALM is still showing the same thing. Once you connect it, you will probably see some other stuff. Tools, object spy, and some other stuff, now they are showing up. Okay, there were only 4 items shown before, now there are more than 4. And window, just the same old, and help will be the same. Okay, all right, now let's look at these menus one by one, whatever new stuff has come up. Okay, now In the search, you have find, replace, incremental search, and all. So we all know how search works. So I hope we don't have to go over that. Okay. Then the design. In the design, we have call to new action, call to copy of action, call to existing action, or call to existing API test action. Okay. You will understand these when you start using them. For now, just we talk about the menu. Checkpoint, okay, existing checkpoint, database checkpoint, XML checkpoint, file content checkpoint. Output value, okay, similar options, existing output, database, XML, and file content. Then start and end transaction check syntax, step generator, and function definition generator. Record, you have record option, web event recording option, and record and run settings. Okay. Run the test case, run now, reports, maintenance run mode, update run mode, run current action. In resources, now you have object repository and some other option. All right. Okay. Now let's do and some of these things, whatever we see in the menu, some of these things are now available on your toolbar as shortcuts. Okay. Now let's look at these toolbars. Okay, you have new, open, you have add. Okay, so you can add. Now you can click on that and you have the option to add new test and so on. Okay, then you have your save options, which are disabled right now because we haven't made any changes yet. You have your ALM connection, you have your remote connection, you have your virtualization service settings, your record button, your playback button, which is your run button. Okay, then you have your insert call to new action. Okay, and you have a bunch of different options like new action, copy of action, existing action, and so on. Then you have your checkpoints. Okay, right now it is only giving few checkpoint options. Okay, and we will see more checkpoint options once we do a web test recording. Okay, let me click on this. Come out. Okay, then this one, it allows you to toggle between the keyword view and the editor view. Right now we are in the editor view. If you click on this, it will show you the familiar QTP interface, and actually this editor view and keyword view has been there in QTP also. If you've done that, then you should have seen that there is also keyword view and editor view. Okay, so this is your keyword view, similar to like how you have a table. You have your item, operation, value, and documentation. Okay, then you have your solution explorer. Okay, which is this thing. Then you have your toolbox, which is right now right here, nothing in there. Okay, then you have your properties right there, and then your data, your debug pane, your open application in HP Mobile Center. Okay, your object spy, and object repository, and last run results. Okay, so those are the menu options. All right, now let's record our first test case. What we'll do is we'll use our training website. Okay, and we'll just simply go there and just open the site and just see if something is there or not. Okay, very simple test we will do. Okay, so we click on record. Okay, now when we click on record, the first thing you will see is you see this record and run settings window which pops up. Okay, and you can basically set your settings. Now because we had chosen the 4 add-ins in the beginning, now again going back to when we started UFT, we started UFT with 4 add-ins. We had Java, we had web, mobile, and Windows, which was the WPF. Okay, so now you can choose what application you are doing and you can choose the settings. Okay, so for now, for this exercise, what we will do is we will now you have the option to record and run on any open browser, or you can choose to tell it which browser and which URL, which website you will be running the test on. Okay, so basically we click here. Okay, open the following when recording or running. Okay, and then we say use local browser, okay, or mobile center. So we're going to use local browser. Okay, then you give the URL. Now whatever website you're testing, let's say you're testing Yahoo or Google or Gmail or a training website. Okay, you put the URL. So this is our training URL website. Okay, website URL. Okay, then which browser do you want? Okay, now you have the option to choose whether you want to run it in IE, whether you want to run it in Chrome, whether you want to run it in Firefox, and so on. Okay, so whatever browsers are installed, it will look for those browsers in your system and it will show you in the list. Okay, so let's say you want to run it in Chrome. Okay, all right. Now we have two more options. Do not record and run on open browsers. Close the browser when the test closes. Okay, now these two are important because you may have other browser windows open. So you don't want to run your test in those windows, and also you want to close the browser when the test is done. Okay, so we choose these options. Okay, and we click on OK. So once we click on OK, now if you see, HP kind of reduces the window size, goes on the side. Okay, and you see your recording toolbar has come up. Okay, and on the left you have your keyword view, and it will automatically open the Chrome browser because we said we're gonna test in the Chrome browser, and it's opening the Chrome browser right now. So while it opens the Chrome browser, now you have this recording toolbar. Okay, so you have bunch of different options. Now some of these we already saw in the toolbar after we created our test case. You had your stop, you have your pause, you have your action button. Okay, which action you're recording. Okay, then you have your call to new action, then you have your recording mode. Okay, and you have bunch of different recording modes. Okay, so you action, there's only one action right now because we didn't create any more actions. Okay, in the call to new action, if you want, you can add new actions. Okay, then your recording mode, you can choose what is your recording mode. Okay, then you have your capture to capture something on the screen. Then you have your object spy. Okay, then you have your object repository, checkpoint, and your synchronization point. All right, now the website is open, the browser is open, it automatically opened the URL because we specified that this is the URL we'll be testing on. Okay, now let's do a very simple test. We just want to see as a tester that when we open the URL, the page opens and everything is shown on the web page. Okay, so maybe something you want to check. Okay, let's say you want to make sure that when you load the window, maybe let's just say something, anything for that matter, any link, okay, or any these username or password text box, or let's say even the name of the site, or even this image, are they shown on the site or not? Okay, so the way to do that, okay, is to create a checkpoint. Okay, so what you can do is, let's say, create a checkpoint. Now if you remember earlier there were less checkpoints from the toolbar, but now that we are working in this website, there are a lot of different standard checkpoints available and output values available which we can use to put in our test case. Okay, so we will use a very simple standard checkpoint. Okay, for this, and you can try playing with other examples. Okay, like bitmap is for images, text is for text, and so on. Okay, so let's say we click on standard checkpoint. Once we click on that, what will happen? Okay, now the toolbar disappeared. Okay, so the toolbar will disappear, and if you see the arrow of my mouse, it has changed to a hand. Okay, so now UFT is waiting for me to tell UFT, while it's waiting on the recording, to select an object which we can do as a cross verification that it has loaded correctly on the web page. Okay, so let's just say my checkpoint in this case is, let's choose something on the screen. Okay, and you can choose anything. Let me cancel this. Okay, so let's say this login box has appeared. Okay, so I'll click on that, and UFT will give me an option. Okay, the location is a standard checkpoint, and then it asks me the question, the location you clicked is associated with several objects. Select the required object from the tree below. Okay, so within the browser, on the page, we chose what? This text box which is called username. Okay, so let's say we click on OK. All right. Once I click on OK, then it gives me the option that okay, these are the different properties and its constant input and so on. Okay, and parameter and whatever. We'll talk about those maybe later, but right now just click OK. Okay. All right. Now we have done this. So let's now just stop the recording. So very simple. Now if you remember earlier, this action 1 was completely blank and it said new step. Okay. Now we have this new line which has been added, that on this page you have username and check and you have a checkpoint. Okay. And you can view this in either the keyword view or the editor view. Now the beauty of UFT is by default. Now if we toggle between keyword view and editor, the beauty is it automatically writes the code for you. Okay, it automatically writes the, now this code is VB script. Okay, so UFT will automatically generate the VB script for your automation test which you just recorded. Okay, now we've done this. Okay, let's save this. Okay, and I'll go ahead and close this browser because we didn't close this browser. Okay, now let's run this. Actually, before we run this, let's see what happened. Now, when you created this recording, it was blank, right? And the toolbox was blank. Now that we have created something, if you see in the test objects, now you have the name of the page, which is the title of the web page. Okay, and underneath you have the web page, and then you have the object which we clicked on as for the checkpoint. Okay, so if you click on that, okay, basically you can see its properties, and of course you can use this in your test. Okay, so basically what I can do, I double clicked on it and see it automatically asks me, see I just double clicked on it, it automatically asks me to see set the value for that checkbox. Okay, now I don't want to do that right now, I just wanted to show you. The other thing is you can click on it. Okay, you can click on open resource and it will take you to the object repository, and I will quickly tell you in a few seconds what is an object repository. Okay, so this is the object repository. Okay, now I clicked on that username, right clicked and said open, and then it's showing me the properties of the object. What are the properties of the object? It has a name, username, it has a class web edit, it is in the local repository. Okay, and then there are test object details. For example, what type of object it is, text, its name is username, its HTML tag is input, visual relationship identifier, there is none, ordinal identifier, none. Okay, and some additional details, smart identification, true, and so on. Okay, and that is under the test objects. You also have it under the checkpoint and output objects. Okay, so it shows the other values of that particular object. Okay. Okay, now let me close this and let's run this test. Okay, to run this test, all you need to do is, of course, before you run any test, make sure you save it, because sometimes maybe UFT will freeze or say your system will crash or something else will happen. Okay, so always save your test. Okay, so save your test, and then to run it, you can either press F5 or click on this button or run it from here. Okay, click on run. Now, so you click on run and then you say run. And actually, where that window, I will tell you again, it was basically where do you want to save your results. So like you're seeing, I'm not doing anything right now. Everything is happening automatically. The browser window open, the website open, and it's trying to check. See it how automatically highlighted that statement. It's trying to check if that object is there. It closed the browser and it gave me the results. Okay, so pretty much everything happened by itself, and then it also gave me a report automatically. Okay, it said okay, check mark. Okay, cross 0, that means 0 errors, 0 warnings. Okay, you can also, it also shows the time and duration of how long it took to run the test, okay, which tool was used, okay, any errors and so on, and test flow, okay, and it also shows the test iteration details, that how many times we have run it, okay, and execution time and so on. All right, you can also click on here, show more, to see some other stuff, okay, whatever the details are about the system and about the test, okay, and also maybe test data and so on. All right, now that we have run this test, okay, now we had only one action, so we'll click on, let's say, action 1, okay, and let's look at the output screen, okay, and then we look at standard check, okay, it should refresh. Should show up here. It's not showing. I don't know why it's not showing, but normally when you run a test, it captures the screen and it shows you your active screen. Okay, anyways, our test passed. Now, why did we add the checkpoint and what is the object repository? Okay, now let's talk about those two things. Okay, first of all, we added a checkpoint here. Okay, now let's just say if I ran a test on this, not on this. On our website, okay, let's just say I ran a test and I just wanted to see if the web page was loading and objects are there or not. Now manually and physically I can see and verify all the different things. Okay, I can see it and everything looks fine to me. But if I have to tell UFT that okay, that some things have, whether things have loaded correctly or not, how do I tell it? Okay, and that could be anything. That could be these text boxes for the username and password. That could be this image. That could be all these links. Okay, that could be these PayPal logos or whatever. That could be these courses, course list, and so on and so on. Okay, so a lot of things in this page, right? Or let's say if you were to test some other page. Okay, let's say eBay, for example. Okay. So on eBay, let's say the developers adding different modules on the front page, right? So you have a lot of different things. Of course, one of the main things is the eBay logo. The other thing is the search toolbar. The other thing is different categories. The other thing is maybe new hot products which are there, like this, the ad, then your categories, your menus, your search, your cart, so many different things to test on the front page, right? So how does UFT decide that that thing is there? And if it finds that, how does it say pass or fail? Basically, if you remember your test cases, every time you have a test case, you have a pass or fail criteria, right? The only reason why it passes is because there is an expected and actual outcome defined. So basically, by defining a checkpoint, you are telling UFT that check for this. If this is there, that means it's a pass. If it is not there, that means it is a fail. Okay, so that's what you are doing with checkpoints. You are telling UFT that if this thing is there, then pass it. Okay. All right. Now that is about checkpoints. Now, and of course that helps you in checking your web pages and everything because you can't look at everything, right? Okay. Now, what is the object repository? Now I told you there was nothing here. Now you have objects. Now let's go back and look at this page. Okay, any page. Okay, whether it's eBay or whether it's our site, everything on this page, okay, is an object. Okay, and right now we're talking about a web page, but the same thing applies to an application. For example, let me open it. The flight demo application. Okay, now with UFT you get the flight GUI and the flight API. So flight GUI, okay, is the application, okay, is the visual application. Okay, so everything, now there's a login and there's a password. Okay, now this is the newer application. The old application was what used to come with QTP, the flight demo. This is the same thing but a newer version. Okay, the only and it's probably a scaled down version or a different version. You do have a similar version on new tours on the website, okay, and the old version. Now the password on this, let's say I put it now. So it is a flight application, okay, to book the flight, okay. Now everything and anything on this page and even on the previous page, okay, or on the screen, okay, in the window, everything, this drop down, this date box, this button, this picture, even the window itself, okay, everything is nothing but an object, okay. Even this minimize, this close button, this icon here for the drop down for the menu, shortcut menu, everything is nothing but an object, okay. This web page, everything inside this web page is an object, okay. So this image and the link embedded in it, they are objects. This image is an object, this title is an object, this link is an object, this link is an object, okay. This insert text box for the username, this password field is an object, this button is an object. Everything on a web page is nothing but an object, okay. Basically, in a way, it's the whole thing is a collection of objects, okay. Now why does this UFT have object repository, okay. Now why do we have this repository? We have this repository so that, now let's track back a little bit. Now how do you think UFT will distinguish between the various items on this web page, these different objects? How does it differentiate? Okay, let's say what's new, that's a link. Our trainers, that's a link. About us, that's a link. Contact us, that's a link. Now all of these are links, okay. Now how does UFT differentiate between these links? What is the way? Okay, now let's look at it in maybe a different everyday life example, okay. Let's say you are in a classroom, okay. Now in a classroom there are boys and there are girls, okay, and every boy has obviously a different name and every girl obviously has a different name. Now if a teacher comes to a class, how does a teacher identify each student? Obviously by certain features, maybe physical features, and of course their names, right? So there may be let's say 4 boys, John, Jack, Jim and Johnny, okay. So 4 boys with 4 different names, and they all look hopefully different. They don't look like each other, right? Different height, different hair, and so on, different skin color and so on, right? So every person has a different property, and likewise the girls will have different names, and of course they look different, they have different hair color and everything, plus also their gender is different, right? So what are these different things? They are nothing but properties, right? So same way, every object in a web page has some properties, right? So for example, this link has some property, this link has some property, this link has some property, this image has some property, that username and password field, they each have their own different properties, that login button has some properties, okay. Okay, that includes not just the properties but also the names. Now we already looked at that username field, and let's look at it again. As soon as it can open it. So as we see here, that particular box for the username or that field has the name username, okay, and more than likely, okay, and I'm saying this again and very hear it clearly, I'm saying more than likely, it is going to be unique to that particular page, that only this object will have that particular name, okay. No object on that page should have the same name, okay. That is the ideal situation, okay. Now non-ideally, or not ideally, there may be a situation where there may be multiple objects with the same or similar name, okay. Now but we will talk about that maybe later, all right. Now So each object has its own unique name and its own set of properties. So basically, by storing these things in what is referred to as an object repository, you are helping, or UFT is actually helping itself to correctly identify the object it needs to test and work with. Okay, so now if I were to record a test case and were to put username in the username field, that means UFT should be able to correctly identify the object. Okay, now so basically, in other words, what is object repository? Object repository is nothing but a collection of the properties of the objects. Okay, so it is a repository. Okay, repository like kind of a database. Okay, it stores all the properties and names and everything of the objects in its repository. Okay, now there are two types of object repositories. There is local and there is shared. Okay, local is for each particular action when you are recording, so each particular test case when you are recording. Shared is when you create a shared repository and you transfer all of these objects into a shared repository so that it can be shared between multiple test cases and maybe multiple actions. Okay, the whole idea is you are able to reuse something over and over again because you are going to work with it again and again. All right, so that is the concept of object repository, and this object repository is an important interview question. So you should know what is an object repository, you should know what is local repository, you should know what is shared repository. There are some other things related to repositories, but we'll maybe get into that later. All right.
So this one is the local repository.
Yes.
So can you show me like the shared repository?
The shared repository I don't have on this machine right now. We have to create one. In order to create one, once you create one, then you can transfer the local repository to the shared repository. Right now I don't have one on this because I have not created. I have to create one. Okay, so this is the local repository, and the local repository, if you go to the object repository manager, okay, so right now it's showing you the local object repository. All right, in the repository manager you have a bunch of different options. Okay, and you can manage your repositories. So here is where you will manage your local as well as your shared repository, and you can create your new repository. You can click on new, and you can save it also. All right, so let's close this. All right, now let's move on to the actual. Let's do a test for, let's say, login. Okay, now we'll just create a new test case. This is a trial version. This is a trial dummy version, demo version. It's good for 30 days. You can download it from UFT, HP website. Okay, so we are creating a new test case, and before we create, I'll show you a few more things which you can do. Okay, so now again it created an untitled solution and whatever action and action whatever. Your first action is there by default. Okay, now you can rename your action. Okay, whatever name you want. Okay, let's say landing page or front page. Okay, so when we start that, we can do that. Okay, then here you can also add multiple other actions. How do you add actions? You can either go here, okay, and then you can basically okay, I hope it doesn't crash. frozen. For some reason, it's been crashing on my system. Okay, it didn't. Okay. So what you can do is you can go to the insert call to new action. Okay. Now there you have a bunch of different options. Right now we don't have any other actions, but we can create a new action. Okay. And actually, if you look at it, okay, right now there's only one thing, front page over here. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can click on insert call to new action, call to new action. Okay. If you click on that, it gives a new window. Okay. And in the new window, it asks you the name of the new action. So let's say I call it, let's say maybe login. Okay. And then you can make it a reusable action or not. Okay. You have the option. You can put whatever description you want. And where you want to put it. Do you want it at the current step or at the end of the test? Okay. And the new action will be added to the end of the test. It's just telling you what will happen. If you click here, it will say what is happening. Okay. So at the end of the test, we click on OK. If you see in the Solution Explorer, now you have another action. Okay. So you can create as many reusable actions as you want and keep on doing that. So basically, the idea is so that you can reuse these actions at a later stage. Okay. Another thing which you can do is you can go to the solution and you can also add new test, okay, to the same solution, okay. So you can do that from there, okay. So you keep on adding whatever. So anyways, so let me go ahead and do this. Now let me delete this action, okay. You can add actions so you can separate your tasks. Okay, the idea is of separation is so that your testing is modular, so that you can reuse your effort. Instead of putting all the steps and all the things in one place, you can break it down into different actions so you can reuse it. Okay. Now, of course, and your statements and whatever you either record or you type in the window, you can also manually type, your code here. If you get that good that you start writing your own VB script, and eventually that's where you should be headed. This is just a primer of what UFT is and how it generates the code and everything. You should be able to understand the code which UFT is generating for you, and eventually by following what UFT is doing, and of course by studying and preparation and practicing, you should be able to write your own code. Okay. Now, the code which you use in UFT, whatever UFT is generating or whatever you write is VB script. Okay, so you will basically need to start learning advanced VB scripting. That's a separate thing. Okay, right now we're just talking about the tool and how to use it. All right, now we've done with this. Okay, now let's say we record this test, new test. Okay, again, in this case, of course, we are doing web. You can do the same thing with the settings for the Java thing. For the mobile, you have different settings, and for Windows applications, you have different settings. Okay, so we are looking at web because right now a lot of things are web. You will mostly come across a lot of different applications. It will depend on each different job, and every different job has a different requirement. Some will be for web testing, some may be for mobile testing, some may be for desktop application testing. Desktop application is something which runs on your computer, on your desktop. Web testing is maybe web page or maybe web application. Okay, there may be API testing, there may be Java application testing, there may be mobile testing, which is testing of mobile applications. Okay, and mobile applications can be tested on a computer. Okay, that is why we have this option, otherwise this wouldn't be there. Okay. All right. Anyways, so web application, we specify all the different things. Okay. Now, one thing which I didn't talk about was the parameterize runtime browser using global data table and whatever. I'll come to that in just a little bit. Let's record our test first. Okay. All right. So we've done this. Now it went to the side. Okay. Now it's opening the browser for us. It's opening the site for us. It has done that. Okay. Now what we will do is we will say, okay, your username is Nixon, your password, okay, we enter it, we click on login. Okay, I think you changed your password.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no. The username is running.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Anyways, let's say, in fact, this is a good way. Okay, this is, in fact, that is another test case, right? If your username and password is not correct, right, that means it should not let you log in. That is also a test case, right? We can do that test case as well. Okay, so let's create a checkpoint for this. Okay, and I clicked on that. Okay, so the text checkpoint, it's saying check that invalid login, please try again, is displayed between try again and username and password. Okay, and it is always a constant. You can also define a parameter, but that's a different topic right now. Okay, so we do that. We created a checkpoint to tell UFT that make sure that when username puts wrong, either wrong username and password combination, whatever it is, whether it is wrong username, wrong password, or wrong username, right password, or right username, wrong password, whatever it is, whenever the combination is incorrect, okay, or even blank or whatever it is, it should give me this error. Okay, so we've recorded this test. Always remember there's two types of testing. You test for the correct data and you also test for the incorrect data, right? Positive and negative testing. Okay, so in this case we've created this test case. Now we have these bunch of different steps. Okay, the first step was username, we entered. Now if you see that excuse me, the first one, if you see item, what does it say under item? Username. Okay, and if you bring your mouse to it, it shows you what type of item it is. It says web edit because it belongs to the class web edit. Remember, we looked at the properties. Now what kind of operation are we doing? Any operation on that particular object? Yes, the operation we are doing is doing a set. That means we are passing a value. Okay, what value are we passing? We are passing the value Nixon, and because it's a string, we have to use double quotes. That's how in UFT that will work. And there is automatic documentation created for you by UFT. Enter Nixon in the username edit box. Now it's created that. The next step is password. Now password is again another object. If you take your mouse there, it shows it's of web edits class. Okay, what is the operation? We are doing the operation set secure. Okay, now why set and set secure? Because by default UFT knows that that's an encrypted field, that it's a password field. It sets it by default as a set secure. That means the information which you pass to it as a user will automatically be passed as an encrypted secure information. Okay, so basically your password, you know your password, and I'm not going to say it because I'm recording this session, but your password is automatically encrypted by UFT into an encrypted code. Okay, and it is passed as that. Okay, the underlying value is still your password, but it will not pass your password directly as the actual password, but actually an encrypted code for your password. So basically it encrypts your password, in other words. Okay, and also it shows the automatic documentation. Enter the encrypted password in the password edit box. Okay, then the next step is the object is login. Okay, and if you see here, the type of object now is web button. Earlier it was web edit. Okay, because it's a text box where you can put information. This is a button. Okay, so like login web button is the type. What is the operation? Click. Is there any value passed to it? No. Automatically documentation, it says click the login button. Okay, and we've done this first step. So technically what you could have done is have this as one action and then the next step as another action. Okay, we right now we've done everything in one action. Okay, now once it logs in, the next step what we have done is we have this web because it was in correct login, the page. Okay, it says what is the object type? It is the page. Okay, and then what is the operation? We have a checkpoint, so we are doing a check operation. Okay, so We are checking what? That there is text on the page which says, I think invalid whatever the text was, which we created the checkpoint. So, and you can actually open this by clicking here and see what is the checkpoint. Okay, so the checkpoint was, this is the name, login to the site and so on. Check that invalid login, please try again is displayed and so on. Okay, so all of the things are there and you can choose different options like match case, exact match and so on. Okay, so you have that. So basically all the steps have been created and automatically documented. Now one thing, and this is a tip for you, okay, as a tester, one thing to remember is, because everybody is afraid of coding, everybody is afraid of writing the code for automation. Everybody just wants easy record and playback. This is record and playback right now, that's what we are doing. But if you think about it, what are we really recording and what are we really playing back? What are the different things? Now as a tester, you're not developing this entire web page which we just looked at, right? We looked at this web page. Did you develop this web page? No. Did you write all the code for this? No. Now let's say, let me show you something. If you go click here, right click here and click on view page source, okay, you see all this code and all that stuff. Okay, now did you write this code? No. Are you going to write this code? No. Do you need to write this code? No. That is not what you are doing. That is not your job also. Okay, and that's a lot of different types and things written in that particular page. Okay, now going back, now come to think of it, what are you really doing when you're testing a web page or an application? You're doing certain actions or you're checking for certain things, right? What are you checking for? You're either checking, for example, that all the components are there. Okay, that is one thing you're checking. Or what you're doing is you're interacting with the, let's say, application or web page. Okay, for example, in this case you are putting either the username or password, right, and clicking on what? Login, right? The other thing which you may be doing is maybe some stuff which is happening on the background, which is maybe the database and so on. Right now let's not go there, but just for the simplicity of it, most of your actions are what? Limited in nature. Okay, what are your things you are checking again? Maybe objects, whether they are there or not, and two, whether you can interact with them, and three, whether they are working correctly or not. Okay, that is mostly in most cases what you are doing as a tester. Okay, or and also of course you are testing whether in negative situations things are working as expected, and for example if user puts wrong username and or password combination, they should not be able to log in. They should get some kind of error or some kind of a message. Okay, so you are also checking that by putting incorrect information or incorrect data or incorrect method or whatever is not supposed to happen is not happening, right? So that's also what you are checking. So overall, the point I'm trying to make is you have limited set of actions. So there is limited type of coding involved. It's not hardcore programming. It's not hardcore coding. You only do these things. So if you can figure out and if you can follow by watching the code of your recordings, you will easily, slowly be able to write your own code. Okay, you slowly be able to write your VB script from scratch by yourself. Okay, now let's look at your script here. Okay, now, and my UFT has frozen. No, okay, it's working. Okay, and just give me 1 second. I just need to quickly hang on 1 second. Okay, so what I was saying was, now let's quickly take a look at, now this is your keyword view. Let's quickly take a look at your editor view. See what has happened. Okay, now again we'll toggle back and forth. Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. And if you go back to your code, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Okay. Now, what is happening here? Okay, I will try to explain to you. Okay. Now, you have your okay. You have your. I think for some reason it is messed up here for whatever. Anyways, you have your username. Okay. Okay, again it froze. Okay, there you go. So you have your username set Nixon, and that's the field. Now, if you go look at the code, you will find a matching line, okay, which is basically, it should be here. I don't know why it moved there. Maybe I clicked. Okay, anyways. So your code is here and your action is here. Okay, this is your action or your keyword view. This is your editor view. Now, if you see the similarities, okay, now what is it saying over here? Okay, browser. Okay, within the browser, you have an object which is this is the title, and if you go see, that's the title of our web page right here at the top at the tab. Okay, that's the title. Okay, browser, and in double quotes the title of the page. Okay, then it says dot. What is this dot saying? That you are going to do either some action or define some sort of a relationship. Okay, similar to how we were doing it in databases and in programming the same way. Excuse me. Whenever you're doing some action or you're defining relationships, in most languages you have some method. In VB script, this is the method. You say dot. Okay, so browser, this is the title of the page. So because there could be another page which could be Yahoo. Okay, now of course the Yahoo page has a different title, and the university or portal, the class training portal, has a different title. So how does UFT distinguish? By specifying the title. Okay, so browser title dot page, because the object is, this is what kind of object? This is a web page, right? So it's saying page. Okay, now every time it will be the same code. Now if you see browser name of the title dot page, browser title dot page, browser title dot page. So if you see, over time you will understand that it is repeating the same things over and over, and you can basically manually type this same exact code by yourself if you memorize it. So it's not really hard to memorize this, right? All right, now what is next? Then on that particular web page, okay, it's saying, okay, this is the web page and so on. Then you have your text box dot web edit. Okay, now what is web edit? Okay, now if you remember, I told you that these text boxes, which are fields for username and password, they are of the type web edit, right? And I showed you that in the object repository when we looked at the properties, because it was showing the class. Okay, so dot web edit. Same way, the button was of the class dot web button. Okay, so you're specifying the objects class, and then what are you doing? Then this is the name. You are identifying which object. Okay, so in this you have your let's go back here. You have two objects, right? You have one called username, you have one called password, right? So you are telling UFT that this is the object you want to do something with. Okay, what you're doing we'll talk about in a second, but same way, password or username. So you are telling UFT that this is the identity of the object. Okay, you are giving the name of the object. Okay, then you are saying again dot, and then you're saying set in case of username, and of course you're saying set secure. I already told you set secure is for passwords, right, for encrypting the information. And after that you're passing the value. In case of set, you have passed that value. In case of set secure, you're passing the value. Okay, so in both cases you are passing value. Okay, and you're enclosing your values at all times within double quotes. Now
Here,
same way, yes.
Here is set is a method.
Yes, set is a method and set secure is a method. Okay. All right. So same way, now you have you're passing this object, okay, and you're telling what kind of action you are doing. The action is click, okay. So click is again another method. What is the result going to be? That you're going to click on that button, right? So you're defining which object you're clicking by passing uh, all the different properties where to find the object, okay. Now of course you don't want UFT to randomly click, right? So by defining this, we are telling UFT where to click, okay. Same way, by defining this, we are telling the browser line, the password line, we are telling which object you are working with, what is the method, and what is the value, okay. So basically every time whenever you're writing a statement, what is it? You're telling which object, you're telling what action, and if there is any value associated with it, you pass the value, okay. So very simple, right? So if you can figure this out, then you can slowly start writing your own code, okay. All right. And I will share the VB scripting guide with you, so you can maybe read it and learn it and whatever. And this is how you do the checkpoint. So you're telling again, this is the object, then what are you doing? The action or method is check, okay, and this is your checkpoint, okay. So you're passing checkpoint as a value to this check function, okay, and then it will check whether that is there, okay. So pretty much that's what you're doing. Now if you look at the keyword view, all of those things are just in a table format, okay. All right. Now I hope all of this is clear. You can also over here add new steps. Likewise, you can manually type your steps. Okay. Now let's run this test case. Before we run this, let's save this. Okay. So we save this. Let's run this. Okay. So it automatically did everything. Test case passed. It shows everything. Okay. All right. All the results. See, check, check, check. It shows all the steps have been done. Okay. The things have been done. All right. And if you scroll down, even the checkpoint, everything. Excuse me. Okay. So everything is done. All the tests have been done. Okay. Start browser. Excuse me. Okay. So your test case is run. Now let's close this and let's look at something else. Okay. Now we've been doing this in, let's look at the record menu here and record and run settings. Okay. Now in record and run settings, this is the same thing which we first put when we first started recording. Okay. The first window which comes up when we create a new test, right? Okay. Over here we had chosen Google Chrome, right? Now what if I wanted to run this test in multiple browsers, right? So what I will do is I will say parameterize runtime browser using global data table. Okay, so I will check on this, okay, and I will keep it at global data table, and I will keep it as, call this new parameter as browser. You can call it whatever you want, but it's so obvious to call a variable or a parameter for browser, right? So we'll call it browser, and let's say click on OK. Okay, so I'm going to click on OK. Now if you see your data table, in the data table now you have Chrome listed under a new, the A changed to, it was blank earlier, right? Now it has changed to what? Chrome. So what you can do here is, let's say you want to do IE. Okay, so we put IE also. Okay, and let's save this. Okay, let's run this test. Okay, and this window will come every time when you run the test. I didn't tell you before, it will give you the name of the test, it will show you the result location, and it will give you a bunch of options. Okay, in the options you can choose whether you want to create. Okay, did I click on something? I think I might have clicked on something. Okay, there you go. Okay, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Okay, so something's wrong with it. Okay, it keeps on disappearing on me. Anyways, you can put your results folder or temporary run results folder, and you can also provide input parameters there if you want. Okay, anyways, right now we'll keep it the same result location, click on run, and you can also of course cancel it. So running this, okay, that's our Chrome. It opens the browser, puts the username and password. Of course, it's incorrect. It checks for that. It closes the browser. Now it should automatically start IE for me. There you go. It opened IE. And it's taking some time to load, but it will load up. Okay, page is loaded. It will put the username and password. It should be the same result. Of course, it's wrong username and password. Okay, again, test is done, complete. Our results are there. Okay, now earlier we had a green check mark and everything was green and everything was pass. Okay, now something happened here. Even though we know that everything went correctly, something happened here. Okay, so for some reason it doesn't find the object. Okay, but the point anyways of this exercise was that you can run your tests across multiple browsers by, which is what we did here in the data tab. Let me close this. By putting the by parameterizing the browsers. Okay, so same way you can parameterize across as many browsers as you are testing. So basically, if you're testing a web page across multiple applications, that means you can let's say you create a new website, let's say maybe a shopping site. Okay, nixonsbestdeals.com or whatever you call it. Okay, so obviously you want that all the different users want to are able to see the website properly and everything is the same and everything shows nicely and cleanly and everything is working, right? There are no errors. There is no, maybe no HTML errors, maybe no JavaScript errors, maybe no CSS errors, maybe some XML, whatever, different things are used, and different technology and different languages are used to build websites and shopping carts and so on, right? So you want to make sure that everything is correctly running, right? So that is the purpose behind what is called as cross-browser testing. I don't know if we covered this in class, but cross-browser testing is what? Testing something across multiple browsers, okay, to make sure it is working. So UFT, you can do that by parameterizing the browser and defining the different browsers. So you could also say Firefox, for example, and so on. Okay, so as long as you can parameterize it, it will run in the different browsers. Now, that is one way of running it across multiple browsers. If you're only running it in one browser, then it's okay. You don't have to parameterize it. How did we do it? From the record and run settings by parameterizing the browser. Okay. Now, what is parameterization? Okay. Parameterization, and this is another interview question. In UFT, you have the option to parameterize data or parameterize actions. Okay. In this case, you are parameterizing the browser. So basically, you're telling UFT to use different browsers for different things. Whereas, same way, you could also, for example, where is your keyword view? Okay. You could also parameterize your username and password in a data table like this, and you could pass a different combination of usernames and password to the to UFT, so it parameterizes them and tests them across different parameters. Okay. Now, of course, you can use parameterization in different ways. Okay. And the way to parameterize is, for example, if you want to do parameterization here on the name Nixon, okay, so you will click on that. Once you click on that, it changes to this text box, and you get this kind of P thing, okay, to parameterize. So you can click on that, and another window will open, and it will give you the options how you can parameterize. Okay. So there are different ways to parameterize. Okay. So you can parameterize using data table and so on. Okay. Right now we are not going to parameterize this, but you can do it. Okay. Same way you can parameterize your password field and any other object you can parameterize. Okay. The idea behind parameterization is to be able to check across multiple different, maybe data or maybe settings or whatever, different variables. There can be so many different possible uses of parameterization. Parameterization is done when you want to try with different things. That's all. So that's what parameterization is. You are passing a different parameter every single time for every single whenever you're running. So let's say if you run one test case and if you have 4 parameters, then for every parameter it will run the test case again from start to the end and test for that particular parameter. Okay, so that is what parameterization is. So I hope that is clear, and we'll try to do this in one class where I will show you maybe a little bit of example more of how to do parameterization. Okay, now we just did the browser. The same way we can do the username and password, and by clicking from here. Okay, for the browser we did it from the record and run settings. From the username and password, you do it from the this P option. Okay, and you go to the data table. You can click on add new parameter. Okay, and then it will open the window, and you can define the name of the parameter. Okay, which sheet you want, whether you want current action sheet or global sheet and so on. Okay, and then you click on OK, and then you put your data in here. Okay, let's say if you click on OK and you got your P text, you got your stuff. Okay, so you can actually put your other usernames. Okay, whatever usernames you have, you can put there. Okay, so that way you can parameterize your test case. All right, now let's look at the object spy, which is used to identify the objects on a web page. Okay, now let's open the site again. Manually I'll open it. Okay, so we opened the site. Okay, now let's look at the object spy. Okay, now what is the object spy? Another interview question. Or how will you identify the properties of different objects? Okay, now this is an interview question. Now, what is an object spy? Object spy helps you in identifying the objects, and it also maybe helps you in adding objects to the object repository. Okay, this is the object spy. You can also access it from the tools when you have your test case going on. Okay, okay. So you click on object spy. Okay, it should show up. Come on. Okay, there you go. That's the object spy. So this is what the object spy window will come. Okay, you have a bunch of different options. And it has a bunch of different columns and some other stuff. Okay, now let's open the web page. Let me minimize this. Okay, it's not going to the browser. Let me try doing it. Should let me go to the browser. Okay, let me minimize this somehow. Let me close this. Do this. Okay. Okay, and tools, object spy. Okay, now you have your window and you have your object spy. Okay, so now what does object spy do? Okay, let's try it. Okay, so I click on this thing. Okay, use the pointing hand tool to select an object. Okay, and you can also press and hold the control key to perform mouse operations. Okay, that's to release it from the object SPY. So you can click on this. Okay, now if you see now, what is the object SPY doing? Okay, when I move my mouse across different things, the different objects on the page, if you see there are so many different objects. Okay, and when I hold my mouse on that particular object, in the object SPY window, you will see the object hierarchy and also its properties for identifying the object, including its physical location, its name, its class, everything it's showing. Okay, so this is a link. Okay, it's showing a link. Then if you go down, if you see that whole box is also an object. Okay, so there are so many different objects and it's showing that it's a web element. If I go here, okay, even this login is a see, everything link is an object. This thing is an object. Okay, this thing, there's another box which is another object. Okay, there are so many different objects. So basically object SPY helps you in identifying the different objects in your application or on a web page. Okay, now you can also do the same thing in any application. Okay, see, wherever you take the mouse, it will show you the properties, and whenever you click on it, okay, let's say I click on this image. Once I click on it, it will capture the properties of that object. Okay, that's what it does. So there you go. That's it. Once I click on it, my mouse no longer is in that object SPY mode because it has captured the properties of that object. Okay, now if you see, and why this is helpful, because if you remember, whenever we were writing the code, okay, whether it is in the keyword view or whether it is, or whenever we are recording, whether it's in the keyword view or whether it is in the editor view, every action is being done on what? It is done on object. So pretty much QTP identifies subjects for automation by identifying each object by what? Its properties. And its properties can be a lot of different ones. For example, if you see that image, its class name is image. It has a certain absolute X and Y value. It has a certain file name. Okay. Then if you go down, it has some other properties. It has a source link also. Okay, and so on. Okay, so basically by knowing the properties, and of course right now it's too early for you, but once you start using these things, the objects, slowly you will understand which objects, which properties are more helpful in identifying which objects. Okay, for example, this absolute X and Y position, that means this position X and Y on this page. Okay, X is the bottom axis, Y is the vertical axis. Okay, and I hope you understand graphs and charts, so you understand X axis and Y axis. Okay, so this is the absolute X and absolute Y position on the page. Now more than likely this may not necessarily be the most helpful information. Maybe your more helpful information is what? The file name, the class name, okay, and maybe the image SRC and some other stuff. Okay, so you might find those as more useful information when identifying the object. Okay, now here is another interview question, and I want you to figure out the answer on your own, and maybe think of it as a homework. Now when you have two objects, okay, on a page, okay, if you have two objects on a page and they have the same name, or let's say they don't have a name, or they have similar values, how will you find or differentiate between that object? So how will you make sure that UFT finds the correct object? Okay, so try to think about it on your own, and I'm sure you can find this answer in Google. It's very easy. If you just type it, you will find it in Google. Okay, this is an interview question and asked in a lot of interviews, for especially when it comes to UFT automation.
So okay, can you how
you will identify between, let's say, two or more objects on a page or in an application which either have the same name and properties or have the same
Okay, one
name.
second.
For example, there are two.
How will identify two or more pages?
No,
Oh,
no.
no.
How you will identify two objects
Oh.
which have the same, let's say, name. For example, there are two buttons. Okay. Now in our website, let me close this. In our website, let's say we have this login button, right? Now let's say, and I have this go button. Okay. Now let's say if for some reason on both buttons the text is also submit and the name of both buttons is also submit. Now how will UFT identify which button to click on? Whether it should click on this button or whether it should click on this button? That is the question I'm asking you, which you should think how and what it should be. And if you don't find the answer, that's perfectly okay. What I want you to do is, as a practice, make sure that you Google whatever you don't know. And this is, as a good tester, you always want to do. Whatever you don't know, your first line of defense is always Google and YouTube. Okay, so you Google if you don't know the answer to a certain question. Okay, and that is the interview question. How will you identify between two objects which have the same name or same properties? Okay, how will you differentiate? Okay, so that's a good question for a automation tester. Got it? You understood the question, what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Let's just say both of these buttons, instead of go and login, they were both submit buttons, and both of the names were also submit. Okay, and obviously both of them belong to the class web button. So how does UFT then in that case identify whether to click this button or that button is what I want you to answer me. Okay. All right, got it? Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. I think we should end it here. We will do maybe one, maybe two more sessions on UFT. And we will try to do maybe a little bit of parameterization, maybe some other stuff, so you get a better feel and understanding of it. Do you have any questions on what we have covered today in UFT?
No, I have already pretty much basic knowledge about what you teach today, so that's why it's just for me revising.
Okay, so you know how to parameterize, and you
Oh
know
yeah,
how
I
what
know.
is an object
Oh yeah, I know
topology,
this one. Yeah.
and you
Object
know how
repository.
what is the object repository and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, that's good. So we'll end it here, and then maybe we'll do another session either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
It's the basic UT. This one is the basic thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm not going to cover VB
Yeah.
scripting. That's advanced level. You know, that's pretty
Yeah,
much
it's
a
a
separate
descriptive.
class.
Yeah.
That's a separate class by itself. If I have to teach you coding, that's a separate class by itself. That's a full class.
Mm.
But I gave you some tips today on how to figure out and what kind of coding you are going to do. I hope you understood my tips, which I told you about how to figure it out.
Yeah, I already did what you write in, what you show in the code, like this browser, this page dot this dot set this thing.
Yes.
So I know that one. So.
Okay. All right. Any
Oh,
other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't have any question.
Okay. All
From
right.
today class, yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nick.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.